Hello, this is Marian coming to you from seemstobeso.com. Don't know how many times I have redone this video for one reason or the other, but hopefully this will be the last time. When I did this the other day, I recorded the whole thing without sound, so I'm hoping I got it right this time. Anyhow, let's get on with the lesson. This is lesson 4 in my series on working with fabrics and electric quilt. This lesson is going to cover how to scan your fabrics for electric quilt and put them into the software to use. We're also going to edit them a bit in the software. I'm going to try to keep this lesson as short as possible, but every video I've made has had them at 30 minutes. So I just can't seem to make it shorter. I'm sorry. First, I'm going to note my scanning software. It is from hamrick.com. I purchased this software many years ago and I have used it for years and years and years. I own the pro version of the software. If you purchase the standard version, it is $50 and you pay for upgrades after they come out after a while. There aren't that many upgrades to the software, but if you have a new operating system or that kind of thing going on, it's worth it to perhaps spend the extra money and buy the pro version because you will never pay for another upgrade again. It does have some additional features, but I can't honestly tell you whether I use them or not. I do know I've never used the film slide scanning, so I've never used the OCR text files, although I do use my sheet fed printer sometimes to scan books and I make them searchable PDFs, and that has to do with OCR, but I don't know if it's this actual software that's doing that or not. I don't know what the other advanced features are for the software, but we're going to go right into the software and we're going to get started. When I set up my software many years ago, simply because I scan all of my cookbooks, all of my magazines, all of my books, everything. I don't live in the United States, and we are someday going to move back to the United States, and I cannot bring back all of my books. So all of my books are scanned so that I don't have that heavy weight whenever I move. That's the only reason why I scan them, is because of the fact that they will all have to go back to the States at some point, and if I don't have the book weight, then I'm happy. So I set up my scanner on the input for 300 dpi. That's the resolution I prefer to use for any kind of book. Even if I were doing fabric, I feel the same way. I want a good quality image, and 300 dpi is a very good quality image. There are other DPI resolutions that you can choose, but I just stick with 300 dpi. You don't have to go higher for books. You don't have to go higher for fabric. If you're doing heavy image photography type work, you might want to go higher, just to get all that color in there. But for this kind of thing and for books and such, you just really don't have to go. And the one thing you do want to remember is that the higher you go in DPI, the higher the file size is going to end up being. So you want to keep that in mind as well. On my output window, I have a default folder where I send everything that whenever I create images, whether I take a screenshot or use my scanner or whatever, I have a default folder and I send them all to this folder. I make sure the auto file name is checked. I have JPEG checked. When I'm doing books and magazines, I change it to the PDF, because this will go to a PDF also if you prefer. I pay a bill every month where I have to send a PDF. When I scan the paper document, it becomes a PDF. So to change it it's just down here, and that's all. And it's really simple. I give my basic name for my scan of what I want, and this number will change depending on, if I'm continuously scanning or not. So the first thing I want to do is I want to set up a preview of my scan. I've already placed my fabric into the scanner, And the one thing you want to do is preview, because preview allows you to see if you've got the item straight in your scanner. If it's crooked, you want to fix it, especially when it's something like fabric where it's stripes or a print or that kind of thing, because in Electric Quilt we need to edit that. And if you're using the crop feature, you want to have straight fabric so that your print doesn't seem lopsided when it goes into a project. With books and such, it's the same thing. You don't really want to read crooked print, so you want to try to get your paper as straight as possible, and that's why using the preview is a good option first. So the next thing, I can see that this is pretty good, and I did not pre-iron my fabric. If you're going to do fabric, I do recommend that you iron it so that it's nice and flat on the table. But because I'm not too worried about that at this point, and this is just a lesson to me, I did not iron my fabric. So I'm going to go ahead and scan this. And when I have my printer set to open up PDFs or images that scan, or when I create a new PDF, it also opens the PDF so I can see how the image turned out, and that's what's happened here. It's opened up in OpenView, which is my default JPEG viewer. I now need my Explorer. I've all told you in a recent video how to get to that point, and so I'm not going to explain that now. I've noted that I use a different file manager, and my scanned image is right here. As you can see, it is 5 megs, so it's a pretty big file. And at 600 dpi, there's every possibility that this would have come up at between 10 and 20 megs itself. So it's a huge file size, even at 300 dpi. So I'm going to move this into my scans folder. I'm just going to come over here and do it. I'm going to note to you that I don't do a lot of fabric scanning, and that's simply because I can usually find the images I want online. Whenever I buy something, for instance, I grab the image if it's at all possible. It's not always possible, or I don't have an easy way of getting it, but for the most part, I do grab all the images of everything I buy so that I have a view for me to say, okay, I do have some of that, and I have purchased that. I don't like to buy duplicates of fabric and that kind of thing, so I definitely keep an eye on what I've already purchased. Now, this is the downloaded image. As you can see, this is 525 KB, but the file size is much lower. I'm going to rename mine, so I'm just going to copy while that's selected, and I'm going to rename it just like that. And I'm going to do this since it's already one. What will happen then is after I have purchased it, I usually will note the price I paid and how much yardage I bought. Even if it's half a yard, I still do it. This is one of the fabrics where it's already been marked that way. On this one, I'm not going to use necessarily, I don't know that I'm necessarily going to use a scanned image. This would, for me, I would want to lower this file size. It's just too high. But so I would probably resize this first. I would take in any graphic software will resize your image for you. Windows Paintbrush will resize images. I happen to have a convert image just on my right click menu, which comes because of this file, this software from my file manager, my Dopus software. I don't have resize here done, but as you can see, it shows the JPEG quality of 90, and that's the highest it will go, and that's good for the web and that kind of thing. I'm going to put it at a slightly higher file size so that I can just work it out. And I do resize almost all my images. This software will have taken this pretty far down. As you can see, it's added the word large on it. That's how I know that's the one that I did. The file size is way different from before, and it is, I don't know why it's gone only to 542 by 768, but we'll see what happens when I put it in the software. So now we want to come to Electric Quilt. I'm open in Electric Quilt. I have a P70 file open already, but you don't necessarily have to open any kind of projects you're working on in order to do this lesson. But I will recommend that if you don't open a project file, that you be sure that you save your images to your library after you're all done with Electric Quilt, so that all that work you've done has been saved. If you don't, and you just leave them in the sketchbook and you don't save the P7E file, then you've just lost all that work. So I can't reiterate that enough. Everything needs to go to the library once you are done working with bringing your scanned images into the software. Otherwise, you just lose everything you just added. Okay, so we want to be in our photo library. In Electric Quilt, there are two ways to work with fabric, bringing in fabrics that you've scanned. One is from the fabric library itself. You can import that way, or the other with scanned fabrics in particular, or photos from a digital camera. We want to use the photo library. And the reason why we don't just send them into the fabric library is because if you do have, for instance, that 5 megabit file, we need to reduce that. We need to get a repeat. We need to bring down the size. All of those things are important to working with the scanned fabric. So we want to import our image file. And as you can see here, I already have some images in my photo library, but this is the default images that you get with Electric Quilt. In my library, I have some that I have used previously. So it's not like I don't have any photos in here. This is my family. Hi, family. And I'm going to bring in my yellow one. I want to bring in the one I resized though. So here we go, the dash large. And then I'm going to add it to my sketchbook. And you do this with each file. Now, if you bring in multiple files of your scans, say you bring all your scans in at once, it can take a few minutes, especially if you've chosen your scanned image that's the larger file size. If you did not resize first, you can then take and you need to add them to Sketchbook, because if you don't, when you close this window, which is what we're going to do next, you can come here, but you still have to close that window. So if you have brought in multiple images of your scanned fabrics, you need to send them all to Sketchbook first. Otherwise, you'll just end up bringing them back in again, because the import results won't save them once you close that window. So I want to take it, I want to bring this to my, oh well, I can't do it from here, I guess. So this just shows me that it is in my sketchbook. I'm going to have to close. So it's definitely important, if you bring in multiple fabrics, you're going to want to make sure that you get them in Sketchbook, so that when you open Sketchbook and you open photos, remember we did this in our photo library, so we want to come to the photo button and not the fabric button. We go to the scanned fabric that we just added, we click on edit, and we have some choices. We're going to choose the image work table because we want to edit this video or this fabric just a little bit. And so it's going to open up our fabric on the work table. Now I could have resized it through image resize here, and that's where, if you don't have graphic software on your desktop or your iPad or whatever, you can do it in Electric Quilt by coming and doing it here. The problem for me here is that I don't really want to go this route, but I do need to bring down that height requirement. So I want to uncheck my aspect ratio. I should have done that in the other one. But at the same time, I want to get rid of, I'm going to hold off because I want to get rid of the wrinkle lines first. So I'm going to take and just bring this up slightly and apply it. I've cropped it. I'm sorry, and I didn't even tell you how I did that. I clicked the crop button. It creates a dotted line or a dashed line across all four sides, and it adds little squares. When it's just on, when your mouse is just on the dotted dashed lines, you'll see a pair of scissors. But when you're up on the little black corners or the middle sides or top and bottom, you'll see the little arrows appear. And that's when you can move the fabric into place or do what you want with it. Okay? So I'm just going to let that be. Oh dear. Didn't mean to click that button. Okay, so going back to this, you can go to your image resize and then uncheck your aspect ratio. And let's just say we want to go to 3.3 inches or whatever it is. Here, we want to lower our resolution. Well, I hate to go that route, but I'm gonna keep my resolution. Okay, so as you can see, it's really zoomed our image. Now we're going to take and we want to fit it to a size that's better for Electric Quilt. And you have several options here. You can take and you can crop it again with using this route here, just by finding something that works well for you. With model fabrics or blenders, or tone-on-tones as they call them also, you have the ability to take and you don't have so much repeat because they're kind of like dyed fabrics when they look like this. They don't really have a repeat. So you can move this around just by putting your mouse into the square itself. The other option that you have is up here in the presets. It will give you preset amounts that you can choose to make the sizes larger than what will fit. So of course you can't really go any larger, but we can go down to 3 by 3, and I think that's what this was in the first place, if I remember right. So I don't know that I want to do that. I'll go with 2 by 2 so that I can move this around, and this way this is what's going to cause me a repeat. Once it finally repeats, the one thing you need to consider when you're making these images and doing the crop feature is that when you don't have a repeat, you're going to have this side is going to end up over on this side when it comes into your fabric and when it comes on the top or the bottom. So if you are doing a large scale, you're going to have problems getting it to meet up properly so it looks seamless when it's tiling, because no matter what, it's going to tile. That's how this process works. So that's why having large images or a large square is a little bit better than if you don't. Currently I have this 3 by 3 square in here. It's picked up my file name. When I brought in this image, it had the same file name. And you can move some of that file down here into notes. That's up to you. But at this point, it is pretty much up to you. So this is still in your sketchbook. If you wanted to, you could come over to your block work table and we'll make a little square want to make a fairly large square because I want to try and show you how repeats work. I don't think you'd ever have a square that's large, but let's see, is that it? Is that my, yes, that's my repeat. No, that's not my repeat. Oh, I know what I did. I forgot to copy it as fabric. That was pretty stupid. I want to copy this fabric. I have other scans in there from the other videos that I messed up. So this is the one I just created. I've copied it to fabrics and I've closed the window, and now I can redo my fabric. Where's my little window? There we go. I'm going to bring it in now, and this is the one I just did. And as you can see, this is how it's going to look when it's tiled together. It's not great. That's why you really want either a larger scaled box. I would have preferred that to be a little bit larger so that it would do better for repeats. But you know, at the same time, I don't usually have big boxes either. So if I make this smaller, let's have a 4x4 box. Okay, and when I make this, as you can see, it's not quite as noticeable. It's still noticeable, but it's not as bad. This is why I don't do this kind of thing. In this case, it might be better to just do a resize of your fabric and then bring it in. I'm not sure if any of the previous scans show this better. Okay, that shows better. I'm guessing I have a much larger square with that. Or maybe the process I did was slightly different. I don't know, but I'm going to show you now ones that I didn't resize first. So let's go ahead and bring in the image that it is originally. Import image for tracing is not what I want. Is it what I want? I forget. No, I want the photo library. And yes, I do this to myself all the time. So let's bring the other one in, the one I scanned. Is that the one that's the large file size? No. This is the large file size. Okay, so we want to add it to Sketchbook and then close, go to Sketchbook, and here is that fabric. We want to edit it to the image work table. No, I don't want to save it. I want something new. So now I want to take, this time, I remember now, this time I went to my custom and I did a 4x4. And I just kind of worked out what I thought looked good. And that's where I cropped it. Once you crop, you click to crop the image on the check mark, and then you send it to your sketchbook. Once you've done that, it has named it. As you can see, it's got this great big long file name now, and you copy it to fabrics. And then we're going to come over here to our block work table, and we're going to try this fabric in here now. And there you go. It actually doesn't look too bad in that window. Let's make this larger and see how the repeat will look. The repeat is not too bad. It's actually a lot less. So that's where, you know, you can play quite a bit with your fabrics. And you can still go to your photo library. You can go back and play with the fabric till you get a look that you want. So now I'm just going to talk to you about the other, I hope I didn't go too fast. Please let me know if I missed something. I'm going to talk to you about the other fabrics that I have made as examples, because there are various types of fabric to give consideration to. So I want to import image files, and I have that one already. This is a scan, this is scan, scan, and scan, and I'm going to bring this one back in. Okay, and as you can see, they appear on my import results window again. I want to add them all to Sketchbook, so I can do a multiple add, and it is really important to make sure you add them to Sketchbook or they won't be saved once I close this window. And so now I'm going to come over here, and they are in my Sketchbook, as you can see, and let's talk about prints. We'll talk about the large scale one in a few minutes. This one doesn't have a, I'm sure it repeats at some point, but my scan of it I think is so small that I don't get the repeat in. I looked and looked and looked and looked for a repeat, and I could not find it. So I had a really hard time with this. And one of the things that I don't like about Electric Quilt and bringing in the scanning is, unless there is some way I don't know about, I don't have any way to zoom in and still try and get a crop either. So I don't know how people, when they talk about on the Electric Quilt site, if you have polka dots, that you only need to make a crop of one teeny tiny polka dot and that it will do the repeat for you. But the problem with that is seeing that one teeny tiny little repeat polka dot to get it. There's no way to zoom in and then click your crop tool. When you do try to zoom in and make it larger, well, we'll try zoom this. You can see this is really big. There's a lot to this. Once I click crop, it goes back. And there's no way for me to have a zoomed image. I don't know if changing this will make any difference to it or not. No, it doesn't. I don't think I can come out here. I can't come out here. There's just nothing I can do that I know of that I can zoom in so I can find that repeat and then still be able to crop it. This to me is a major issue, you know, because I think a lot of people would run into the same problem. And that's why I'm not sure that scanned fabrics are something people do very often. So it just, anyway, when you're doing a print like this, the thing to keep in mind here, I'm going to go this route, is maybe I'll go a little bit larger. 5x5 is as large as I can go. So here, when you have this print, I'll zoom in when I edit this video. It's really important that you consider the top and then the bottom. Remember that I mentioned how when you go to put it in your on your block table or on your quilt work table, when you're adding colors to your project and it's tiling them, you want to try and make it as even as possible so that when you are working with it, it doesn't repeat in the middle of something. If I were to do it in the middle like this is currently, then when it tiles, it's going to give me one teeny tiny little pile up of this color here, butted up next to this one, and it's going to look really odd. But if I take and I bring this up so that it's just kind of right in the middle of that blue, it's not going to do the same thing. Now I do want to try and make sure I get it right at the top so that I have every bottom part here covered and is what we would call closed, I guess you could say, so that you can see the print as it's normal. Now doing the sides on this print is a little bit different. The print goes down into a curved manner, and so you have to try and work this so that you can get the sides so that they look as even as possible. So if I go to a point where I'm trying to just try and work out this last one here as a full print, then I want to be sure that when I come over here, I have the same thing. I'm right in the middle on that blue. And so whatever's happening down towards this side, hopefully would kind of merge in well with this. I can see that it's really not going to do that very well, but I think it might be okay. So let's just try it. We've added it. No, I don't think we added it, did we? No, we did not. We'll add it to our sketchbook. Then we'll come over here to the block work table. I didn't copy it as a fabric. I need to copy it as a fabric. Here's this, and then we'll copy to fabrics. And now we can add the blue one. And as you can see, that's not too bad of a repeat. That's actually pretty decent, because you know in the first place you're not going to have those big blocks. Now it is going to repeat more often, of course, depending on the size of your blocks, but I don't think you'll notice it as much. You know, I mean, I don't know, because I don't use that many scan fabrics, but you can see it really works well in the smaller size as well. So in that respect, it's a pretty good repeat, and I would actually keep that one. So I'm happy with that one. Okay, so the next fabric I wanted to discuss is the larger print. This is my dread one. I'm not looking forward to it. There really isn't a lot I can tell you with this one, because there's the repeat starts here and here. And while I can bring this in, you know, how do I do this really well? I'm just not sure, and I'm still going to end up with this here. So I don't want to cut this off, because I've got this pair that just ends right here, but there's no way to help this when it comes over here, because the grapes are being cut off, the apple is being cut off, you know, and there's nothing here that helps these down here either. So I'm just lost on how to do something like this. But the only thing I can say to you is to try and work it out the best you can, so that it looks like it's going to work okay. I'm going to bring this up just a little bit. I'm going to bring that up a little bit more, and I'm going to be happy with that. I'm going to see how it works out anyway. I just am really trying to keep this orange out of here, and I'm trying to keep this out of here, so that my repeats are not really awful. And I'm trying to get enough so that I cover here. I didn't want to get rid of my pear, but it just doesn't make sense for me to go and risk having that tomato in there. So I'm going to see what happens, and I'm going to add this to my sketchbook. I'm going to come to my, you don't have to, you can make it a copy to your fabric from here. It doesn't matter, as long as you go into sketchbook at some point and copy it to fabrics. You go to your work table, you come to the color tab, and you add it. Now, as you can see, it does look really different here from what I did, but when I put it in here, I'm going to get what I want. Okay, so let's have a look at the repeat. I didn't see too much repeat on there, so let's see what a bigger one would do for me. It's not too bad on the repeat. It looks pretty decent actually, so I could live with that just as a temporary, you know, look for my project. So I'm actually pretty happy with that. So I'm happy that I cut off the pear, because it kind of looks like a green apple in there. So that's kind of cool in that respect. And the grapes here flow into each other. The oranges kind of work well with the leaves. So I'm pretty happy with that. That's not too bad. Okay, so the next one, let's talk some stripes. Now, I scanned this 2 different ways. I actually turned them when I did this one. This was the actual fabric goes this way, and I thought it would be fun because sometimes when I'm working in electric quilts, most all the stripes I ever get are always going this way, and you never get any that are going this way. You can't rotate the fabric to go that way in electric quilts, so you almost have to take and make a image like this, because you can come up to your screenshot and just make an image of this, then bring it into rotate it outside of electric quilt, then bring it into electric quilt as a fabric, and voila, you have it going the opposite way. I have actually done that kind of thing just to get my stripe going the way I wanted it to. So that's why I wanted to just mention that little fact. And that's why I put the two on the table, so I could mention that. But I'm not going to actually open both of them up. Now, like the Polka Dots on the electric quilt site, where they mention about the different tips and tricks to getting repeats to work well for you, they talked about polka dots. Stripes work kind of the same way as polka dots, but this is a non-traditional stripe. It's not straight. It is a curvy, the fabric has the curved lines in it. It's, you know, and it's kind of wavy, I guess, kind of like for flag, you know. And so when you're working with this, the thing is, you want to keep in mind that you want to bring in your repeat so that it's in one part of the fabric, but you're still covering both parts. And because this is not just a fabric that you can just bring in the red and the white and call it a day, you have to at least bring in a little bit more, because it is a stripe that goes farther than that. It has several different repeats of different fabrics. It's not repeat, it's just the stripe is not the same on each row. When you have a straight line stripe and it's the same row, say you have blue and white or red and white or pink and white, then you only have to do the two. You just do the pink and the white, and that's that, and you crop it. And you don't, I mean, you can make a obvious, you just make it as small as you want, or you can make it as large as you want. But because it's going to line up on the tile, because it's just a stripe, just like the polka dot, it's just a little polka dot, and so it'll line up on all those tiles because it's a fairly easy print to do. But this kind of thing just needs you to still wangle it. When I did this before in the first video I made, I had used the red as my choice to put my first crop in. And the other thing to think about there is that when I end it here, I want to have most of my row in the red as close to the white as possible, because I'm giving up a lot of my red here so that I can have the white. So I want to end it in the red so that I don't have two whites butting up against each other. Instead, I have the red and the white and the red and the white. So I'm trying to keep that at play. Okay, so the other one here is the sides. Because these go up and down in that wavy fashion, you have to try and work your sides so that you can get them to work well with each other. So if you have a fat side and a fat side, try and work that out. If they're thin and thin, again, it's just a matter of trying to find a balancing act that works well. This actually looks pretty good, but if I had this over here, where this is a little bit thinner, this might not work so well, because as you can see, it's a little bit lower than this side over here is, and it's a little bit fatter. So that would not work well, and you may not want to go with that. I'm going to try to bring that back to about where I had it before, although I know this is probably not going to work because it's just a little too close. This side is higher, in other words, this side is lower. So I want to try and bring that to a height. There's no way that you're going to be able to match it up perfectly. But if you can get close, you can at least feel secure in that respect. So once again, we'll do the same thing here. And I will make it a fabric, bring it over to my block, wrong table, and we'll see what happens. Let's see, it's not lined up really well. Would actually try to make that a little bit better, but I'm going to leave it for now. I'm just trying to show you the results of what happens with the repeats. And last, I think it's last. This one has dots, and then I wanted to quickly touch on panels. With this type of print, this is such a great print. I love this fabric print. This one is basically a good for resize type of print because it has an all over kind of print. There's no way to put a repeat in with this. You're better off resizing it. And so while I am going to do a small crop on this, I am actually going to leave this mostly the way it is and crop out this bad part. And then I'm going to come to my image. I'm going to resize this. Oh, let's see. What do I want to do? I'll go down to 6. I don't really want to go too small. And as you can see, this is not too bad. Let's take it a little bit smaller. We'll go, I want to turn off my aspect ratio, which I can see I forgot to do before. And I want this to be 5 also. And I'll bring it to that. So a lot of people use 3 as a number also. I'm perfectly content with the 5, so I'm going to take this to my sketchbook, and I'm going to take and come down here and copy it to fabrics. Okay, so we'll come over here, we'll put the color layer on, and we'll give this a try. And that's not as good as I would like. But this is the same one. This is the one I did the other day. So it's not, like I say, it's not, this one is resized, this one is cropped. So you can see the difference between the two. Okay. So let's talk about panels. When you have panels, it's difficult to put them into your fabric library because it's not like you're going, unless you're specifically working with a panel itself as part of your project, you really don't want to put it into the fabric library because it is going to get tiled no matter what you do to it. Even if you put it in as part of your project, panels to me should always go into the photo library. There's just no other place that they should go into. And I have them in my own library. I don't have many. I think I have 1 or 2 because I don't usually add panels. I usually know exactly what I'm going to do with panels. Like this nativity one, I do have that one. I don't think I have any others. No, I just have this one. And it just doesn't make sense to add panels to the fabric library, only because it's going to tile. So when you do add them to your photo library and you go to work, let's say you've built all your squares and everything and you know what you want to do, you go to your quilt layout, you want to go to photo patchwork if you're going to work with the photo. Now yes, you could take and bring in fabric this way, but you have to add it to the fabric library and then you risk that that repeat again. So that's where I would say if there's a way to do it, I am unsure of how to do it. And that's where you should consult with tech support. But for me to do this, I want to add a panel, photo patchwork, and then I'm going to add it from my library or my sketchbook to the quilt work table. And there you can see it. Now something like this, of course, you would take and you can crop these images so they're single, and that way you can move them into the various spots and that kind of thing. If you had one large one like my nativity one, I don't know if I can bring that out of here or not. I need to add it to the sketchbook. But like if I were going to add this one, as you can see, it would take and do, I don't know really, I can't remember what I can do with this or not. It's been a long time since I worked with photos. So, and obviously you can do something, because I made a project out of this for the blog hop. I haven't done it in 2 years, so it's been a while since I worked with photos in electric quilt. So as far as I can see is, there's got to be a way to bring that through. I mean, you can't do anything over on this side, so it's not like we can really do anything. I don't know what, I'm not sure where we're going to go with this, but this is a good way to see your panels and work with them in that respect. And I would recommend you look in the help file at this point, because it will tell you what to do with photos. It will tell you how to bring them in and get them so you can be working with them and adding the squares and such around them. I will reiterate that I have put, this is the one section of electric quilt that has a lot of visibility on the web. Many sites have done tutorials and lessons and video lessons even on this subject, and I did post a bunch of links on my post for this lesson, and you can certainly visit all of them. I am just not the expert in this part of the lesson, nor am I really in any lessons, but I have some knowledge, and I try to share what knowledge I have and the tips and tricks that I know. So I hope you've enjoyed this lesson. I hope I showed you something new, and I hope you have a great day. We'll see you next week for lesson 5, not next week, but in 2 weeks, for lesson 5 and the final lesson of working with fabrics in an electric quilt, when we'll work with making your own default palette. I will see you then, and I hope you have a great week. Bye-bye for now.